On Sunday, the crowds in Jerusalem hailed him as a conquering king. By Friday, those same people were demanding his public execution. This betrayal was rooted in a specific psychological demand. The people were being crushed by Rome, and they wanted a military messiah who would use violent force to crush their oppressors in return. This collision illustrates the projected God. We map our desire for coercive power onto the divine nature. Because Jesus demonstrated self-sacrificing love instead of military might, he offended their expectations. His character was so far from their projection, they could not recognize him. In the end, the crowd treated Christ exactly how they believed a strong God should have treated Rome. Their violence proves that when we project our own dark traits onto the Father, we eventually turn against the truth itself. This statement from the Gospel of John functions as a literal equation. Life eternal is defined by the knowledge of God. It is the power that recreates human character. The inverse of this equation explains the tragedy in Jerusalem. Ignorance of God's character is the mechanism of death. To misunderstand his nature is to cut oneself off from the only source of life. For centuries, tradition and history have misrepresented God as an arbitrary or vengeful judge. Correcting this requires a patient process of unlearning these false attributes and replacing them with the evidence Christ provided. Finding an accurate picture of God is not an academic luxury. It is the difference between a character that is being restored by divine power and one that is currently fading into darkness. The violence in Jerusalem belongs to a cosmic framework called the Great Controversy, a conflict centered entirely on what God is actually like. This war began when Lucifer slandered the Creator, claiming that the divine government is built on arbitrary rules and maintained through coercion and fear. Lucifer successfully used this same lie to deceive Eve, convincing her that God was a restrictive tyrant. That single misapprehension contaminated humanity, pulling the entire earth into the same darkness. This created a divine dilemma. If God had used force to destroy Lucifer, it would have validated the slander. The universe would have seen a God who kills those who disagree with him, exactly the kind of tyrant Lucifer claimed he was. The universe was caught in a paradox. A lie about character cannot be stopped by power. It can only be answered by a demonstration of the truth. The crucifixion provided that demonstration. It was the moment the heavenly beings saw the absolute, undeniable unveiling of God's character. The cross proved that God does not win by crushing his enemies, but by revealing a love that is stronger than death. It established that his government is built on truth, not force. This revelation broke the logic of the rebellion. By showing that he would rather die at the hands of his creatures than use force against them, God permanently dismantled every charge Satan had raised in the heavenly courts. The cross settled the cosmic doubt. It proved that the God of force was a satanic invention, and that the real God is exactly as Christ described, a father of non-coercive love. While the heavenly beings now see clearly, a profound darkness still covers the earth. Post-Calvary, the human family remains largely convinced of the ancient lie. Humanity is trapped in the same misapprehension that caused the fall. We continue to view the divine through the lens of our own force, fearing a God who looks just like us. This darkness is deepened by speculative theology, the attempt to probe into things God has not revealed. This impatient curiosity breeds human pride, leading us to fill the gaps in our knowledge with our own coercive instincts instead of sticking to the evidence God has given. As long as these misconceptions dominate the earth, the great controversy cannot end. The wound in the universe will only heal when the lie about God's character is finally removed from the human mind. The book of Revelation describes the solution. This long war will not end with a display of military power, but with a final, global act of illumination. Prophecy says the earth will be lightened with his glory. In this scriptural context, glory represents the character of God, the full revelation of his love. This light is carried by a movement of people who study and absorb this character so deeply that their own natures are recreated by divine power. These people become the evidence. By living out the same love seen at the cross, they provide the channel through which the truth of God's nature can finally reach the rest of the world. When Christ's character is perfectly reflected in his people, the fatal projection is eradicated. The earth is enlightened, the lie is gone, and the great controversy is finally finished.